Splinters is full of revelations and epiphanies, not all of which seem to stick. And that's a theme that you pick up also in the recovering, how there are limits to self-awareness in recovering from addiction. In a review of your book published by NPR, Ilana Masad observes that you are, quote, a master at closing nearly every paragraph with what lands as an epiphany. But if we need to keep learning what we've already realized, where does epiphany get us? And maybe you could just reflect on epiphany more broadly in Splinters and in your work in general.
Yeah, I love that. I love that question, because I think I've always been a believer in provisional epiphanies, like, rather than permanent ones. And I think I want to say anybody who's been alive, that seems a bit broad, but most people that I know have had some version of the experience of kind of repetition. Like, I have to keep learning the same thing over and over again, or I have to keep embarking on different versions of the same struggle, or I have to, self-awareness hasn't changed all the things about me that I'd been hoping it would change. I myself feel like I went on a kind of journey of dissolution with self-awareness, where an earlier, me in my 20s thought self-awareness might save me. Like, if I could just understand myself well enough, then I would, then I wouldn't drink alcoholically, I would be in the right relationships, I wouldn't harm myself, But it's actually like, well, you can understand quite a bit and still keep doing the same things over and over again. So I think I actually became, rather than feeling like, oh, like, I'm such a failure, like, I realize things and then I keep making the same mistakes, I think I actually became interested in that as part of the kind of staccato, stop and go, backtracking nature of what it means to be like a work in progress as a human being. So I think I'm interested in dramatizing that way that we do have to learn, or I have to learn some of the same things over and over again, and that, I might, for example, I think one of the reflections that I offer in the book about my marriage is that I was so wrapped up in the story of my marriage. My husband had been through great traumas and tremendous amounts of suffering, and I think that I felt that I could save him in certain ways or give him a better life. And I was so connected to that narrative of salvation and care and sort of being the light to his darkness that I really didn't allow myself to see the daily difficult texture of just the two of us as human beings being in space-time together. So I sort of like learned the lesson, if you will, that I was so focused on the story of us that I wasn't paying attention to what it was actually like for us to be us. But near the end of the book, I'm in another relationship where I've given a different narrative to it. But once again, I've sort of gotten trapped in the narrative of a relationship. If I can just be good enough for this person, if I could just be interesting enough for this person, if I could just be smart enough for this person, then I'll earn their love. And that will actually give me the experience of being loved that I've always craved, because I've always somehow felt that if somebody's love was difficult to achieve, it would feel that much better and it would make me feel sort of whole in the ways that I've never felt whole. So again, I think that often the epiphanies in this text are real, but there's a way that that doesn't mean that they aren't going to be kind of come alive differently or with a different texture or with a different kind of particular valence when they're arrived at through maybe another experience down the road. I think one of the things that, the splintered form of the book allowed me to dramatize is the way that all these kernels of realization, none of them are cast aside, but their logic is less one of the kind of watershed epiphany and more one of kind of prismatic accretion. And I think insofar as I have any kind of general theory of the epiphany, it is more connected to some sense of accretion than some sense of like the singular turning point or the singular moment of dawning realization.
Well, it makes sense to maybe end on epiphany.